playing the waiting game. I've grown tired of the same old same. What I want, it's magnetic, taking me over.
Hey guys, and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about a really interesting product. I'm sure you've already heard of it. It's been on the market for a while now. A Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera. Is this thing for you guys in 2020? So far, I would say it's still highly relevant. It's an amazing piece of technology here. Really excited to use it tomorrow. Actually, I have a shoot coming up. It's for a surfing film, so I'm actually gonna go out there tomorrow morning, shoot with this guy at sunrise with the big 300mm 2.8 lens on it, possibly with a teleconverter too. So I'm pretty excited to get out there and get some more beautiful shots of this thing. What's good about this camera? DCI 4K 60 internal RAW in Blackmagic's proprietary Kodak, Blackmagic RAW. So you have a variety of different compression options that you can choose from 12:1, 5:1, 3:1. Obviously 3:1 you're gonna get the biggest file size, but you're gonna get the highest quality image. 12:1, I've been using it a lot lately and just recording internally to just an SD card, a high-speed SD card. I'm not even using the CFast card, and it's enough to handle DCI 4K 60. Absolutely amazing camera for the price. This guy also does a variety of different ProRes options, ProRes and ProRes HQ. So to be honest, I use the Blackmagic proprietary codec, and the reason being is I use a bit of DaVinci Resolve as well. So it's pretty turnkey when you chuck it into DaVinci Resolve. I'm actually editing on a old school Mac. It's a 2013 trash can Mac. It's fully spec'd out though, 64 gigs of RAM, 3.5 Xeon processor, two FirePro D500s. So it's still a decent computer even in today's specs, and it's able to chop through DCI 4K 60 like butter. So it has no problem chopping through the codec. The only problem comes when it comes time to transcode to H.264, which from Blackmagic RAW to H.264 kind of takes forever, unfortunately. Variety of different recording options with the new firmware update. The really exciting feature you get out of this guy is 120 frames a second at 2.7K resolution, which is amazing. So it's sharp enough. The only problem is when you do use that option, it crops a little bit on the sensor, so you're not getting a full sensor readout, which is unfortunate. It's still a usable image. The image comes out of it it's a little bit soft, but it's still usable. It's still perfectly fine in my opinion. All right, so let's go through what's good on this camera and what's not good on this camera. So the buttons on the top are really easy and intuitive to use. You got ISO, shutter speed, white balance, and then you just turn the wheel. Super easy to adjust. It also has a bunch of different focus peaking tools. So it has false color, which is really good for getting the correct exposure, especially with skin tones. It has a full-size HDMI output port. So if you want to hook up that external recorder, that external monitor, like a Shogun or a Shogun Inferno, Ninja 5, even a small HD monitor, it goes great. Another useful feature of this guy is it records directly to a Samsung SSD. So I have a couple of Samsung T5 SSDs that are both a terabyte each. The awesome thing about that is when you're recording to these T5 SSDs, you can just pull it right off the camera and plug it right into your Thunderbolt 3 port, and bam, you have a really high speed SSD that you can directly edit off of. Another great feature of this camera is it has a XLR audio input. It's a miniature XLR audio input, which is kind of a pain in the ass because you have to get a special adapter cable if you want to run like a Rode NTG on it. But as long as you get the adapter, works great. The internal audio on this guy, the preamps are actually amazing. It never overheats, which is actually a good thing. It actually has these built-in little fans here. So, I've had some problems with Sonys in the past, like specifically a Sony A7 III. When I was running as a B cam and interview setup, it was actually overheating, and I'd have to switch it off. So I had, as my A cam, I had a FS7 Mark II. As my B cam, I had a Sony A7 III. So that, yeah, just experienced overheating problems with this. Never had an overheating problem, which is great. Another thing I love about this camera is the amount of lenses that you can attach to it. So you can literally attach any micro four thirds lens to this. You can attach vintage Canon glass, new Canon glass. You can chuck a Metabone speed booster on it and get a full frame look. That's what I usually do when I'm not shooting handheld. This 12 to 25 Lumix lens has optical stabilization on it, so it's great for handheld shots. And I have a variable ND on it. Yeah, you can pretty much mount anything to this, which is absolutely amazing. It also has anamorphic D-squeeze on this guy, so you can adapt all your anamorphic lenses to this, which is great. I don't personally have any anamorphic lenses. They're a little bit out of my price range, but eventually I'd like to get an SLR Magic adapter and run some like vintage Canon glass, like some FD glass or some vintage Zeiss glass too. Those are beautiful lenses. And then run a diopter and an SLR Magic 1.33 times anamorphic adapter. That'd be great. But anyways, dynamic range on this guy is great. I think Blackmagic claims it has about 13 stops of dynamic range, which is about a stop higher than a Panasonic GH5 shooting a Vlog-L. It's not quite as high as a Sony shooting an S-Log. The A7 III apparently is rated at 14 plus stops of dynamic range, but that's a little bit iffy. I haven't really got such a amazing result out of the A7 III. Produces a beautiful image, but I prefer the image on this guy. The highlights roll off in this is way better than with something like a Lumix GH5. It's a lot smoother, a lot more cinematic. Produces beautiful image. The form factor is a little bit weird. So once you get used to it, it's fine. It's like a really wide DSLR, but you can still mount it on a gimbal. So I actually have mounted it on a Ronin S multiple times. You can actually get a Ronin S power port adapter, so you can use the battery on the Ronin S and it'll plug directly into this and power it, which is pretty amazing. I've been using this guy for almost a year now, for a variety of different projects. I've shot interviews with it, I've shot music festival content with it, shot surfing content with it, so just a variety of different scenarios, and it's performed amazing. This is not really something that's like a run and gun sort of setup. This would be more for your planned shot list setup, or if you want to capture something really cinematic. It has like virtually no autofocus. It does have an autofocus system, but it doesn't really work that great. I would say this is something that you'd want to use if you have like a planned idea of what you want to come out with. The downside of this camera, I would say, is definitely the battery life. So if you are going to go out on a shoot, be sure you're either packing a bunch of LPE6 batteries or you're using like an external power source. It does have a power input, which is really cool. So you can actually run a V-Lock battery with DTAP, and you can actually plug it right into the power port, which the battery I have is a Sony BP95, and that gives this thing like 8 hours of runtime. So you can shoot with it all day, no worries. Your only worry would be running out of hard drive space. But if you're shooting like 2 terabytes of data in one day, you should probably make a shot list or something. So yeah, is this camera still amazing in 2020? Absolutely. For the price point, there's nothing else that really matches it on the market. It shoots in essentially a log format, so you can shoot in Blackmagic RAW in like a flat profile. It's called like a film profile. So there's like extended video, there's film, and then there's like a Rec 709 look. So if you want to get the widest dynamic range, you want to film in the film profile, and then if you're going to a Rec 709 color space, you chuck a LUT on there. So if you have any questions, guys, just leave a comment down in the links, and hit like, subscribe if you can. That'd be great. I'm trying to get this channel rolling, and yeah, stay tuned for more reviews. We got a bunch of different reviews coming up. I got this waterproof housing for the GoPro Hero 8, and I tested that out in the surf the other day. That was pretty amazing. Yeah, click like, subscribe, comment, let me know what you guys think. Cheers.